WFSB, Channel 3, Hartford, New Haven. Now, Eyewitness News Night Beat.
New report on smoking from the Surgeon General is due out tomorrow, the 25th anniversary of the government's first warnings about the dangers of smoking. As Channel 3's Tom Walker reports from Washington, after a quarter of a century, more and more people are dying from cigarette smoke.
In a report that summarizes a quarter of a century in the battle against smoking, the Surgeon General will point to progress in getting people to quit. In 1965, the report will say 4 out of 10 adult Americans smoked. Today, it is down to 3 in 10. The number of people who die from smoking has been revised upward to nearly 400,000 a year. An increasing risk to women. Cigarette smoke surpassing breast cancer as the leading cause of cancer deaths in women. Among adults, the report says men are more likely to kick the habit than are women. And among youngsters, it says girls are starting smoking at an earlier age. The report is sure to bring new calls for further restrictions on where people can smoke.
The first and most important thing to do is to restrict smoking in all public places, including workplaces, not just to protect the great majority of us who choose not to smoke, at least not to smoke voluntarily, but also to provide the strong incentive for people to quit.
The cigarette industry, which has seen a decline in sales in recent years, has already taken out ads arguing against more bans on smoking or advertising.
But people can make up their own minds, and in restaurants people can work it out, and in workplaces people can decide how they want to handle it. We don't need more heavy hands from government.
The tobacco industry is also opposing any effort to impose new taxes on cigarettes as one way to balance the federal budget. Tom Walker, Channel 3 Eyewitness News, Washington.
This is Channel 3 KYW-TV, Philadelphia. From Independence Mall and throughout the Delaware Valley, this is Channel 3 Eyewitness News Nightcast.
The Surgeon General of the United States has fired a devastating new salvo in the war against smoking. In an alarming new report, he charges that 1 in every 6 deaths in this country is from smoking-related illness. That's 30% more smoking deaths than previously projected. The report says 50 million Americans still smoke, but that many adults, especially men, have quit. According to the report, lung cancer now surpasses breast cancer as the leading cancer killer among women. And it identifies teenagers, especially girls, as an increasingly large smoking group.
There are some people who recognize that it may cause their death, may cause cancer, may cause heart disease, but they feel that they enjoy it enough that they're going to continue to smoke, and they actually get very defensive about it. And we may never get to those people.
The tobacco industry tried a preemptive strike against the report with a series of recent full-page newspaper ads. They quoted polls in which a majority of those questioned believe there already is enough taxation, legislation, and harassment involving the smoking issue. The new report comes 25 years after the first Surgeon General's report that highlighted the dangers of smoking.
LG, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. From Channel 10, this is Eyewitness News at 11. South Florida's #1 late news. With Dan Bishop, Dwight Lauderdale, meteorologist Dawn Noe with weather, Alan Massingale with sports, and the Channel 10 Eyewitness News team.
25 years ago, the government warned of the dangers of smoking. Tonight, an update on who's still lighting up.
Good evening. The Surgeon General's new report on smoking will go public tomorrow, but we'll save you 700 pages of reading and tell you what it says. There's less puffing going on across our nation, but smoking remains a major cause of death. The report, scheduled to be released tomorrow, contains good news and bad news. The good news is fewer adults are smoking. In 1965, 4 out of every 10 adults were lighting up. Today, that ratio is down to 3 out of 10. The bad news is more people are dying from smoking. Today, 400,000 people die each year from smoking and smoking-related illnesses. That's 1 in every 6 deaths. If we know smoking will kill us, why don't smokers quit?
The reason that people don't even attempt to quit smoking is because they're addicted. Nicotine is one of the most highly addictive drugs around.
That logic is backed up by smokers we talked to.
I've tried to quit 10 times without success. Went to a hypnotist, worked great for 4 days. And old habits die very hard.
I have to smoke. When I wake up in the morning, It's hard for me taking a cup of coffee before I start smoking.
The report is certain to bring more calls for further restrictions on where people can smoke.
The first and most important thing to do is to restrict smoking in all public places, including workplaces, not just to protect the great majority of us who choose not to smoke, at least not to smoke voluntarily, but also to provide the strong incentive for people to quit.
But the cigarette industry is fighting back against more government regulation.
But people can make up their own minds, and in restaurants people can work it out, and in workplaces people can decide how they want to handle it. We don't need more heavy hands from government.
The government report says because of the progress made over the past 25 years, our nation can envision a smoke-free society. Dan?
Now, from Channel 56, the news at 10. With Jack Hines, Darlene McCarthy, weather with Ron Harris, and sports with Mike Crispino.
Good evening. Topping tonight's news at 10, a new warning for smokers.
It will come tomorrow on the 25th anniversary of the first major warning of the dangers of smoking. Joe Shortsleeve has a preview of the latest government announcement.
There is some sobering news tonight for the 50 million Americans who smoke cigarettes. More smokers than ever before are dying. According to the Christian Science Monitor, tomorrow the government will raise the death toll from smoking from 300,000 deaths a year to 390,000 deaths a year. The higher number is attributed to more accurate counting. The Surgeon General's report comes on the 25th anniversary of the first warnings about smoking. It's an anniversary that has the attention of the Tobacco Institute as well. The tobacco industry has taken out full-page newspaper ads which say enough is enough.
Enough taxation, enough censorship, enough regulation, enough repression. The excesses of the anti-smoking movement are clearly enough in terms of what the American public is going to put up with.
Merriman says their own survey shows a majority of Americans do not support tougher anti-smoking measures. GASP, a group lobbying for tougher anti-smoking laws, finds the ads ridiculous.
This is the same group of people, the Tobacco Institute representing the tobacco companies, who are claiming that there is no direct correlation between smoking and lung cancer. It's ludicrous, it's ridiculous, and I think the informed, intelligent smoker or non-smoker looks at it and laughs.
Doctors say smokers aren't the only ones dying. Non-smokers are also at risk from cigarette smoke.
Over 100,000 lung cancer deaths each year related to cigarette smoking, and they estimate there may be about 5,000 lung cancer deaths in non-smokers each year due to their exposure to other people's cigarette smoke.
Even though the Surgeon General has been warning people about the dangers of smoking for 25 years now, C. Everett Koop pointed out last week that the tobacco industry remains one of the most profitable and most powerful industries in the country. In Boston, I'm Joe Shortsleeve, reporting for the news at 10.
The government says overall number of smokers is going down, while the number of women who smoke is going up. Darlene.
Channel 13, KCOP, Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, Tim Malloy, Wendy Rutledge, Vic Jacobs. This is News 13.
Surgeon General C. Everett Koop tonight says smoking caused nearly 400,000 deaths in 1985. That's much more than any recent estimate. A new report by Koop also shows smoking among adults is down 11% from 1985. That worries the tobacco industry. Taylor Henry shows us what cigarette companies are doing to stay in business.
It's been 25 years since the Surgeon General first warned that smoking is hazardous to your health. The tobacco industry, facing declining sales, higher taxes, and a growing number of laws against smoking, is fighting back with ads saying enough is enough.
Enough taxation, enough censorship, enough regulation, enough repression. The excesses of the anti-smoking movement are clearly enough in terms of what the American public is going to put up with.
The tobacco industry released a poll showing 3 of 4 Americans oppose banning smoking in restaurants or workplaces. Aspen, Colorado has had a total ban on smoking in restaurants for nearly 2 years. It's the only place such a ban appears to be successful. A similar ban didn't work in Beverly Hills, where smoking sections have reappeared.
I think people should be allowed to smoke if they want to smoke.
I don't think that the government should necessarily get into exactly how people should live their lives.
Anti-smoking activists say the real issue is being ignored in the tobacco industry's new ads.
It's an interesting strategy. It's one that I'm sure they've worked out with their advertising advisors. I hope that Americans will see through it and say we're concerned principally about health.
Strict laws against smoking in public have been passed by half the states and nearly 400 cities and counties around the country. In Los Angeles, you can't smoke on buses, elevators, or in grocery stores, hospitals, theaters, or libraries. Anti-smoking publicity drives have recruited such personalities as actor Larry Hagman, former Winston man David Gurlitz, and Patrick Reynolds, heir to the R.J. Reynolds tobacco fortune. Health policymakers and the tobacco industry each say they'll be successful with a well-informed public, but it may be another 25 years before the smoke from this argument clears. Taylor Henry, CNN, Los Angeles.
From KUSA in Denver, this is 9 News, number 1 in Colorado.
In other news, 25 years after the U.S. government first warned of the dangers of smoking, 29% of us still smoke. Surgeon General C. Everett Koop says that's down from 1964, but we still have a long way to go. Brenda Butner of our Washington newsroom has more.
Viceroy, the thinking man's filter and the smoking man's taste.
Those were the days when it seemed that everyone smoked.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
But today, fewer and fewer Americans choose cigarettes.
In the 1940s and 1950s, smoking was chic. Now, increasingly, it is shunned.
Smoking among adults has decreased, down from 40% in 1965 to 29% today. And nearly half of all living adults who ever smoked have quit. But that decline in smoking has been substantially slower among women. Smoking rates are also higher among blacks. More than 50 million Americans continue to smoke, despite the fact that for the past 25 years, the Surgeon General has warned that the habit is hazardous to your health.
People are universally aware of what the Surgeon General has to say about smoking. For example, the Surgeon General's warning. And yet they continue to make the informed choice about smoking.
Every day in this country, 2/3 of this population is assaulted by the 1/3 that smokes, and that assault can be lethal.
Deadly indeed. The Surgeon General blames smoking for 1 of every 6 deaths in the United States, a statistic he hopes will convince even more Americans to join a growing group of smokers who have kicked the habit. Brenda Butner, 9 News, the Washington Newsroom.
Watching Channel 7 News, number 1 in Northern California, with Pete Wilson and Ana Chavez. Pete Giddings has weather and Dan Lovett with sports. Now, Channel 7 News at 6.
The U.S. Surgeon General today issued a progress report on smoking in America, 25 years after the first such report linking cigarettes and disease and death. Dr. C. Everett Koop says half of the people who ever smoked have now quit, but the news isn't all good.
1985, cigarette smoking was responsible for approximately 390,000 deaths, more than 1 of every 6 deaths in the United States, or more than 1,000 deaths each day.
30 years ago, Americans heard a different tune.
You will feel better. Did you say I'll feel better smoking, Philip Morris?
Yes, you will feel better. But while cigarette boxes danced across TV screens, Dr. Ernst Winder and his associates were already documenting the link between smoking and cancer in the Journal of the American Medical Association. He says doctors didn't notice. Today, the Tobacco Institute is still denying the connection, with newspaper ads saying enough is enough. Spokesman Walker Merriman says a recent poll finds people don't want their smoking rights curtailed.
The clear majority of the people who expressed an opinion in this poll say we don't want more bans and we don't want more restrictions.
But the Surgeon General refuted the claims of the Tobacco Institute that the anti-smoking movement is an assault on the rights of smokers.
Every day in this country, 2/3 of this population is assaulted by the 1/3 that smokes, and that assault can be lethal.
Dr. Koop's silver anniversary warning on the dangers of smoking has added one more: stroke. He says smoking is to blame for half of all strokes in people under 65. John Bascom, ABC News, Washington.
Among the groups who continue to have increasing numbers of smokers, blacks, blue-collar workers, women, and young people. As Dr. Dina Dell reports, getting our teens out from under the smoking habit isn't so easy as passing a law.
We start our story with an alarming statistic. 90% of all smokers got hooked before they were 21 years of age, presumably while it was illegal to buy cigarettes. And while the tobacco industry claims it's not trying to lure young kids to the habit, a new survey shows young people have no trouble getting cigarettes if they want them. Researchers sent a group of teens, some as young as 14, into stores to buy cigarettes. 3 out of 4 times, the kids succeeded. They were able to buy out of vending machines 100% of the time. Then the researchers contacted the merchants about the dangers and the illegality of selling to minors. After that, only half as many teens were able to buy cigarettes.
The researchers concluded that educating merchants can go a long way towards stopping illegal cigarette sales. That's good news. But laws have never stopped people from using drugs, whether you're talking about alcohol or cocaine. And besides, how can you expect kids not to want to smoke when they're constantly bombarded with messages like this, that smoking is fun?
So if we want our teens to stop this bad habit, we've got to teach them to look past the Madison Avenue images and see the real results of smoking. I'm Dr. Dina Dell.
Dr. Dina Dell adds that for every person who dies as the result of the use of hard drugs, there are 40 others who die from smoking.
This is Tampa Bay Tonight, your first late news with John Summer, sports with Bob Alvarez, and weather with Wendy Ross.
Kind of an anti-smoking campaign. Sounds confusing? Well, Catherine Bursch is here to help clear things up. Catherine?
John, tonight the Tobacco Institute is declaring war on the anti-smoking movement. Now, there's no secret to why the public relations shots are being fired now. This week marks the 25th anniversary of the first Surgeon General's report against smoking.
Despite the health warnings, over 25 years of them, 50 million Americans still do it. Smoke. Tonight, the Tobacco Institute says those smokers are saying enough is enough. The Institute is putting on a national ad campaign this week aimed at curbing anti-smoking legislation. Ads like this one say anti-smoking laws lead to censorship, harassment, and discrimination against smokers.
What we're trying to do is communicate a message that there are important American values and rights at stake if the anti-smokers continue to push as hard as they are.
But the American Cancer Society says it will keep on pushing.
Since there's clear evidence that smokers inflict economic damage on all of us and also inflict a substantial health risk to all of us, we all have a right to speak up and say that, we don't have to tolerate that.
Smokers we talked to today are at times annoyed by anti-smoking laws, but they can see both sides.
I can't say they've gone too far because they're meant in the best interest of smokers and non-smokers alike.
I understand the non-smoker. I think he has his rights also, and I don't want to infringe upon his rights, but they're starting to infringe upon ours.
The Tobacco Institute says it has most Americans on its side in this tobacco war. The Institute says a poll shows most Americans are not in favor of tougher anti-smoking laws. John?
How seriously, Catherine, do the anti-smoking people take this kind of an ad campaign?
Well, very seriously, believe it or not, they say there are still a lot of Americans out there, 20%, who don't link cigarette smoking to cancer, so they say that any campaign that sort of muddies the issues is dangerous, if not deadly.
Okay. Thanks, Catherine. Well, that's